Okay, let's talk about JSON Schema. JSON Schema is a popular technology to validate JSON documents. It's used by OpenAI and many other companies. Oftentimes, you'll use it in your web server as something for validation of input at API boundaries. But what if you could use it directly within your database? Other interesting scenarios come about, such as retrieving or counting the documents that don't match a given schema, rejecting inserts and updates if they don't match a schema, or transactionally moving documents that don't match a schema or that do match a schema to a different table. So now you can do that using SingleStore's create extension command with the S2 validJSON extension that I wrote, wrapping the validJSON library. And with my just like with my previous extension, this extension I wrote maybe 80 lines of code, and all the hard work was done with the library. That's the nice thing about wrapping existing libraries, packaging them with WebAssembly, is you don't have to write a lot of new code. You can just use the great open source projects that are there. So I tried to use JSON schema in the past, and I never really got the hang of it. It was always very tedious to write. And it turns out now you can just ask ChatGPT to write you a schema that does this in English, and it gives you perfect schemas. So I think this is going to be like a renaissance for JSON schema, and you'll see a bit of that below. So I'm going to walk through using the S2 validJSON extension on some common type of scenarios. If you want to know more about how to create the extension, check out the GitHub repo or my previous post on creating the S2 Reto extension. So let's get started. So first of all, installation. Installation with a SingleStore extension is super easy. You just use this create extension command. And I like to wrap the functions that are in the extension with these unversioned wrappers that will help me update the extension later in a way that just kind of happens transactionally within my queries and won't have any downtime. So I'll just copy paste that, execute it, and now I should have the extensions in my database. Easy as that. So what can we do with this? If you'd like to follow along with this, I should mention you can try SingleStore's free shared tier and just create your own database, install the extension, and play around with it. So how do we use it? First, we need a schema. So like I mentioned, ChatGPT is very good at this. I asked it to write me a JSON schema for a blog post that had a title, author, tags, and content. All the properties are required and must be a non-zero length, and no extra properties are allowed. I guess that was redundant in my prompt. And tags must be lowercase ASCII strings. So in this case, it gave me a perfect schema in one shot. Here it is. This is JSON schema where you list the properties and their types, any constraints on those properties. Here you can see it used a regular expression for the pattern. Let's create a UDF to return the schema. So this really helps me use it in queries without repeating the schema over and over and over again. So it's a convenient way to store schemas in the database. Let me execute that. There we go. Now, let's apply this schema to some blog post scenarios. So I'll create this table called posts. It has an ID and some data, which is a JSON type. That table's created. One of the things you can do with the schema is validate at insert time. So here I'm going to insert into posts, and I'm going to pass 0 for ID, but then for my data, I'll call this S2 validJSON validate JSON raise function. And this will raise an exception if the input does not validate according to my schema. And here I use the UDF I just created to return the schema. So let's try that insert. And there it goes. So it's inserted into the database that passed. But let's try it again, this time with a document that has some problems. This is missing the author tag and one of my, the author property, and one of my tags is capitalized. So we'll insert this, and then there we go, an exception. Failed to validate item 0 in the array. Failed to match the regex, missing required property author. all of the errors should be embedded in this error message. And no document is inserted. So this is a way that regardless of whether your client supports JSON schema or not, or maybe if you're not even using a client, you're just ingesting from S3 or another source, you can apply schema validation at insert time. So another way you can do it is you can validate as part of your query conditions, like your where clause or your projection. So let's insert some more documents. Let's give ourselves another 9,999 blog posts. This is an anonymous procedure that will do that. Here I'm just using a random number for the title. The author is me. I'll have a random ASCII character for one of the tags and random content. So that put in, now I should have 10,000 documents. I validated the schema as I went. You can see that it's a pretty quick operation, as I showed in the S2 Re2 video. WebAssembly UDFs are very, very fast in SingleStore. So now we can count how many documents in the collection are valid. Here we see there are 10,000 documents and 10,000 valid documents, which is what we would expect. But what if we add 10,000 more, and some of these have invalid tags? So here I'm making it so some of the characters are actually going outside the ASCII range into like the pipe character and the curly brace, which is not allowed by that regular expression in our schema. So let's add the 10,000 additional documents. There we go. And notice I did not try the validation at insert time. I took that out because it wouldn't have validated. Now we can get the sum of the valid documents versus the count in the collection. And we should have 20,000 in the collection, but how many are valid? It's all random, so it looks like 19,269 are valid. So let's see what some of these errors are. We can use the S2 validJSON validate JSON errors function to retrieve the errors for the invalid documents. And here we can see that they're all the same because the second item in the tags array failed to match the pattern, which is the error that I introduced. So what might we want to do with these bad posts? How about we move them into a new bad posts table within a transaction? So here let's create the bad posts table, and within the transaction we will insert into that table, and then we'll delete from the original table joined with the bad post table in order to select the ones that we moved. So here we go. This should accomplish the moving, and now the bad posts are nicely quarantined. We have 731 in the bad posts table, and we have, should be 19,269 valid, 19,269 total. So we just leveraged JSON schema to find some documents and that didn't match and move them out of our table, cleaning it up. So in closing, this is a really powerful tool. Having it within the database allows you to do interesting things like centralize your schemas, validate at insert time regardless of the source, and do things like selecting documents that match or don't match a schema. This can be really useful for things like, say you had user profiles. Over time, you add keys, you delete keys. Oftentimes, you have to have logic at the application layer to deal with different versions of documents or documents that look different. With JSON schema as an option for queries, you can leverage that to find and possibly update these documents and keep your JSON content well understood and tidy. There's lots of other scenarios that you could apply JSON schema to, and I hope to hear some from others who I share this with as to what they're going to do with it. This is another use case of SingleStore extensions. I think that taking cool open source projects and just putting them into the database is like an easy way to add awesome functionality to the database. It's really safe done in this way with WebAssembly and create extension command. So I expect to see many more of these, and I hope to hear some ideas. I enjoy packaging these up, so if you have any ideas for libraries that you like to use, other extensions, let me know on Twitter. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and thank you for watching. Bye.